Thank you for joining us for this look at some of the best stories from KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Coming up, it's being called the largest protest San Diego has ever seen. See some of our coverage of the No King's Day event that drew more than 60,000 people. Celebrating Juneteenth, for the first time, the San Diego Black Arts and Culture District raises the flag that symbolizes the holiday. And speaking out for journalism, a former editor at the San Diego Union-Tribune questions her abrupt dismissal from the daily newspaper. We start with a comprehensive look at the ICE enforcement scene in San Diego and Southern California in recent weeks. Gustavo Solis says the situation is becoming more volatile, with growing tension between Democrats and immigrant rights advocates who disagree on how to approach the situation.
From arresting immigrant workers near El Cajon to detaining people in San Diego's immigration court.
I work with the U.S. military.
And raiding a popular South Park restaurant. Local immigration lawyers say this is what mass deportations look like. Federal agents pressured to meet arrest quotas, targeting anyone they suspect of being in the country illegally, not just immigrants with violent criminal convictions.
When Trump took office, he put into place a number of executive orders and the different memoranda, vastly expanding the scope of enforcement activities. And now we're starting to see the fruits of those memoranda.
Over the last couple of months, we've heard stories of a grandmother, a soccer coach, and a disabled asylum seeker, all being caught in President Donald Trump's deportation machine. We've seen an increase in workplace raids, but other tactics are brand new, like arresting people at immigration court hearings or during scheduled check-ins with ICE. Another new enforcement tactic, revoking student visas.
These are people that are finishing graduate programs. This is a doctoral program. This is a lot of time invested and a lot of commitment invested. And that to lose this is pretty monumental for somebody who's devoted their lives to do it.
A coalition of nonprofits, humanitarian workers, and lawyers have spent most of this year responding to this new wave of ICE enforcement. Advocates are patrolling immigrant neighborhoods and warning people of potential ICE activity. Lawyers are rushing to federal courthouses and providing pro bono legal aid to people being arrested. Others are fundraising for families of the people detained, including their U.S. citizen partners and children.
Court fiasco, they were there. South Park, they were there. We've got some organizations here in San Diego that do rapid response incredibly well.
And after last month's immigration raid of a South Park restaurant, San Diego's political and labor leaders are becoming more vocal.
Over the past week, the immigration enforcement tactics we've seen in San Diego have crossed a new line.
Saying that it's hypocritical of our society to profit from the work of unauthorized immigrants and then punish them for that work.
This economy has been built on the backs of hard-working immigrants, and now we unleash soldiers to attack them? It is hypocrisy to the cruelest of stages.
And while politicians, labor leaders, and activists all agree that this level of enforcement is problematic, they disagree on how to combat it. Democrats are quick to criticize White House officials and specific enforcement actions, but they still generally support ICE. Congressman Juan Vargas says ICE agents are mostly good people following bad orders.
I've been in office now for some time. I've met a lot of ICE agents. I can assure you that almost every ICE agent there didn't want to be there doing that. They did not want to be in there disrupting, running into a restaurant like that with machine guns to arrest the cook. They're getting those orders from Washington.
On the other hand, immigrant rights advocates say that the entire agency needs to be rebuilt. They point to a history of civil rights abuses and argue that the problem is systemic, not just a few bad apples or a particularly harsh administration.
The infrastructure is a juggernaut. It is huge, it's large, and unless we're calling for an end, a true end to ICE raids, then we have to be truthful about our vision for a just society.
Local labor leaders say that they want Democrats to do more than just press conferences. Local party leaders say that their power is limited. They are the minority party. But they did send the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, a letter demanding an investigation into the San Diego raid. But just a few days later, the Trump administration sent National Guard troops and the Marines to Los Angeles, where people were protesting increased ICE enforcement. At a press conference in Los Angeles, Noam was crystal clear about their plans.
We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city.
And at that same press conference, Noam's security detail pushed California Senator Alex Padilla to the ground and handcuffed him after he tried to ask her questions.
Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go, I'd put them behind my back.
All right, cool. One hand, lay flat, lay flat.
The situation remains volatile. On Sunday, Trump ordered ICE to increase enforcement in what he called Democrat-run cities, like San Diego. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Gustavo Solis covers immigration and border issues for KPBS. He's done extensive work in recent weeks on the Trump administration's policies and how they're affecting San Diego. You can find out more of his content at kpbs.org. We've seen many protests since President Donald Trump took office in January, but last weekend's is being called the largest political demonstration San Diego has ever seen. We have several stories tied to the event and its underlying issues. Here are KPBS reporters Jacob Ayer, Heidi DeMarco, and Julia Dixon Evans.
Donald Trump has got to go. Hey, hey, go, go.
An estimated 60,000 people of all ages and backgrounds peacefully joined together in downtown San Diego Saturday. Speaking out against the Trump administration and what organizers say is a takeover of U.S. democracy.
It was just like something that was boiling and boiling, and I just popped off now, and I'm like, no, like I have to have the courage, to stand up for what I believe in and not fear, what's going to happen.
Among the thousands who marched through the streets of downtown San Diego were husband and wife Ray Ruby and Katia Cortez. They said they felt compelled to come out and protest for the first time ever. He's an Army veteran.
I feel like a lot of us that serve with me and people alike feel like our time in service was wasted, and we're just trying to show that to everybody else, show that we're for the people, not for the government, current government at least.
And she's a local school teacher.
There's students who have told me, hey, Ms. Cortez, like this happened to my aunt today, or my uncle, or my mom or dad. So they're losing people like left and right, and they're just like, what do we do?
They grew up in San Diego and Imperial counties and come from immigrant families. They're stressed and upset with the current deportation practices.
People are coming here legally, and this is happening. American citizens are being detained, and even if they end up realizing that, oh, we made an error, they return them back. Like, what are they basing that on? Just how we look? So they're profiling us.
The fear of deportations in their community has become unavoidable in their own lives.
Just seeing everything that's happening literally firsthand in front of you sometimes, out in the streets, seeing ICE vans, all that stuff around, it's really hard to watch, and it leaves you speechless.
Spring Valley resident Karina Avila also marched at the protest with her friends.
I'm here for my immigrant family members who are scared, who have come here. They've been here for more than 30 years, and they're just scared of what's happening right now, the discrimination that they faced back then and facing now. They're scared to come and speak their voice, and I want to go ahead and be that voice for them.
She has family in San Diego and Los Angeles.
That these people that they're saying they're taking the criminals, but they're not. They're taking children, they're taking parents, they're taking the hardworking vendors.
To put Saturday's gathering in downtown San Diego in context, it was far larger than any other protest in Trump's second term and almost double the local turnout for the Women's March in 2017. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
In a social media post on June 7th, Donald Trump claimed masks were banned at protests, saying it prevents law enforcement from identifying violent agitators. But some public health professionals say a mask can be a lifeline, not a threat.
Saying somebody doesn't have the right to wear a surgical mask or respirator in order to protect their health or the health of others is really concerning to me as a health professional.
Pediatrician Maya Kumar says that's exactly why people, especially those at higher risk, should have the freedom to protect themselves.
I would just encourage everyone to carefully weigh the risks of going to, a crowded gathering without wearing a mask, particularly if you have not been vaccinated against respiratory viruses or you have underlying health conditions that predispose you to more severe illness.
Studies show immunocompromised people are still more likely to be hospitalized or die from COVID even if vaccinated. And during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests, where up to 96% of people wore masks, 11 out of 12 cities saw no spike in COVID cases.
And that will probably become a much bigger deal if people are not able to take simple precautions like wearing a surgical mask or respirator, to protect themselves.
Kumar says many people still face real risks, even outdoors.
For a person with a serious illness like asthma or heart disease, or maybe who's pregnant or who's elderly or has some other kind of, immunocompromise, it only takes one exposure to one sick person to potentially land you in the hospital.
Kumar says decisions about masking should be personal, not political. She warns that banning masks could discourage vulnerable people from safely joining public protests. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Art as protest takes many forms, from public art installations and underground zines to parody, created to make sense of the world and share a message. Arzu Ozkal is professor of graphic design at San Diego State University. She says protest signs are public, visual manifestations of real-time dissent.
Everybody is an artist. So those are all like journal pages of the United States right now. They're so personal, they're quick, they're witty, also serious.
Familiar imagery and design can inform protest art, like a Trojan horse at the border or a modified No Kings street sign, and even flags or the emblematic red MAGA hat. On Saturday, local artist Cindy Zimmerman's mobile monument goes on view at the downtown library. It displays and broadcasts all the words removed from government websites this year.
Monuments are usually erected by city officials. They represent one way of history. They see as truth. So it's brilliant that somebody else uses, or Cindy uses this as a way to challenge that narrative.
The issues may have changed, but the urgency to respond through art is nothing new. The origins of art as a profession and as subversion are deeply connected to power structures, like monarchies and the church and their propaganda.
The artists start saying, hey, you're oppressing my voice, so I'm going to do things that people can understand what my community is struggling with or what I believe.
In history and today, people create art to serve and challenge power.
Whenever we're not allowed to say what we want to say, humanity finds ways, subversive ways to communicate, because we have the urge to communicate, need to communicate.
Julia Dixon-Evans, KPBS News.
More people are getting their news on social media, and KPBS is there too. We are seeing big growth on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Search for KPBS and find our recent coverage of the protests in San Diego and so much more from our reporters. Well, this week, the Juneteenth flag was flown for the first time in the San Diego Black Arts and Culture District in Encanto. Organizers tell Alexander Nguyen it's a significant milestone.
The Juneteenth flag, with its red, white, and blue, and the bursting star representing Texas and the freedom of African Americans in all 50 states, has flown over San Diego City Hall, County Building, and the school district. But it's the first time it's flown here, at the National Black Contractors Association building, at the start of the Black Arts and Culture District.
It makes me feel proud. It makes me feel like I'm a part of something bigger than myself.
Philip Coleman is the president of the Block Club, a co-working artist space in the middle of the district. The space is the first of its kind to open since the district was formed in 2022.
So for us to be able to also showcase and highlight why Juneteenth is very important to our community and also share that with other members from communities that surround us, we're ecstatic for that to happen, and we think that it's a point that we'll be able to reflect on for many years to come.
Organizers say it's important for the flag to be flown here in the middle of the Black Arts and Culture District because it celebrates the community's achievements.
As we are here to celebrate, we also must lean in.
we must lean in on the realities and the reality on which our great nation was founded. And that was slavery. Let's be clear, we built this nation.
Councilmember Henry Foster says the struggle is still not over as he fights to keep libraries and parks open in the district, referring to the current budget fight at City Hall. Shane Harris from the People's Association of Justice Advocates helped organize this event. He says he wanted to bring the Juneteenth celebration back home.
But even more so important than all of that, it should be raised every single year with a ceremony that launches Juneteenth straight out of the city's Black Arts and Culture District.
Coleman says the event inspires him to work harder to improve the district.
It just inspires me to keep going and working harder because lots of other people are doing just as much work, if not more.
In Encanto, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
A new California bill could force local governments in Imperial County to start translating their agendas into Spanish. KPBS Imperial Valley reporter Corey Suzuki says the lack of translation has kept many county residents from fully participating in the democratic process.
Last September, dozens of speakers gathered at the Imperial County Board of Supervisors meeting in El Centro. They were there to discuss the county's plan to spend future tax dollars from the lithium industry, one of the major conversations happening in the county. But some of the speakers had something else they wanted to talk about.
There's no Spanish translation of the updated plan. We cannot continue to push aside Spanish-speaking residents, especially when their health and livelihoods are at stake.
Fernanda Vega is with the Imperial Valley Equity and Justice Coalition. She pointed out that the county had only published its spending plan in English, meaning many residents were locked out of the discussion.
A lack of translation is a lack of transparency. How are our communities supposed to fully engage when they cannot access the most basic information?
Translation and interpretation services in local government meetings can vary widely across the state. But the lack of Spanish translation in Imperial County is especially significant. Across the county, 3/4 of residents speak Spanish at home, and around 1/4 of them also don't speak English fluently.
There's no reason we can't have dynamic, multilingual conversation across the state, in the legislature, and in local governments, even if we're not a big city.
Raul Ureña is the former mayor of Calexico, the county's second largest city, where 9 in 10 residents speak Spanish at home, and more than half don't speak English fluently.
Especially in a city where Spanish is not the minority language, it is the majority language, the overwhelming majority language.
Calexico does offer some live interpretation during their city council meetings, but it is one of many local governments statewide that don't translate many key documents. That means a lot of residents have a harder time holding their elected officials accountable. In 2022, a state audit found that previous elected officials in Calexico had been overspending, creating an ongoing financial crisis. One of the causes, the audit said, was that Calexico only publishes its key budget documents in English.
To have a check on government corruption and to have transparency in the finances, the state government recommended that at least the budget be translated so that the population could know where their money was being spent.
Calexico is only one example. The Imperial County Registrar of Voters has been accused of violating federal voting rights law by not translating key election documents. The Board of Supervisors, the most influential body in the county, has also faced criticism for holding English-only meetings.
Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 707 by Senator Durazo, enacting to local government.
Now, though, a new state bill could push the county of Imperial and some cities to do more. State Senator Maria Durazo of Los Angeles is the bill's author.
This bill allows local governments to serve their communities better and increases the public's access to meetings, especially vulnerable communities.
The bill, SB 707, would strengthen parts of the state's open meetings law, including requiring certain counties and larger cities to provide translated versions of their meeting agendas, which list major decisions and policies that elected officials are planning on voting on. Those requirements would apply to the Imperial County Board of Supervisors, and also appear to apply to the cities of Calexico and El Centro. Imperial County officials are pushing back, though, along with several other counties across the state. At the Board of Supervisors meeting last week, the county's assistant CEO, Rebecca Terrazas Baxter, pointed out that the bill doesn't include any state funding to cover the costs.
It presents substantial costs and operational challenges for the county to implement, especially counties that are small, dealing with budget concerns as well.
Others, though, are more hopeful about the changes the bill might bring, like Vega, the advocate who attended the county lithium hearings. When she spoke up back in September, Vega says she was trying to speak up for everyone who felt shut out, including her own parents, who felt like they couldn't take part because of the lack of translation.
And that's what they've told us. They've told us, like, it's in English. Like, I don't want to be in a space where I don't understand and I'm looking all confused.
Vega thinks the new bill could make a big difference for people like her parents.
By literally just translating a meeting, you're already saying you're invited, you're important. We care about what you have to say.
The California Senate passed the bill earlier this month. It's now in the state assembly. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
The news media's status as a check on the government is under attack, and in some cases, it's unfriendly fire from within news outlets. Longtime opinion editor Laura Castaneda says she is a casualty. She says the San Diego Union-Tribune fired her last week shortly after managers nixed an editorial on the ICE raids in Los Angeles. And she spoke with KPBS's Amita Sharma.
Laura, describe the circumstances that precipitated your firing last week from the Union-Tribune.
Well, this was not the only incident, but we wrote an editorial, the editorial board, on the ICE raids and the protests, the peaceful protests in Los Angeles that turned violent. That editorial was pulled by the publisher, Ron Hasse, and told one of our team members that it was one-sided and they were not going to publish that piece.
What is your response to the idea that the piece was one-sided?
There is absolutely no way that I can agree with that. I work with two very professional journalists. We talked about the piece. The piece was written by the three of us, and we stand by every single thing that was in that editorial. There was no way it was one-sided. What's the other side?
How would you characterize the pulling of the editorial on the ICE raids in LA and the elimination of your job hours later?
The two go hand in hand no matter what they say. You cannot kill an editorial at 11 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and then by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I can't get into my computer or my email. Nobody told me what was going on. I think I'm calling IT, and I get a call back from the number 2 guy in the company telling me that my position has been eliminated, and I point blank asked him if this was connected to that editorial not being published. And I told him that I felt that was censorship, and he insisted that one had nothing to do with the other. I don't believe it.
Were there any events before last week that signaled that management at the Union-Tribune had changed course on its editorial policy?
Absolutely. One of the things that they did is they destroyed our Community Voices project. We had a project where we handpicked a lot of community leaders from all walks of life, different age groups, genders, races, religions, and they were writing about a variety of topics. And all of a sudden, most of them people of color and women, their voices were shut down and they would not run their pieces. They also pulled an opinion piece that a student wrote at UCSD over those protests that were going on.
And what were those protests about at UCSD?
Well, it was when the war started between Israel and Palestine, and one of the students wrote, and we tried to get the other side, obviously, but trying to find the students from the Palestine group was difficult because their student group had been disbanded on campus. So it was two very, different pieces, and they didn't want to hear it. We've been told not to run pieces that have the word genocide, to stick to local issues. We're not going to write about this. We're not going to write about that. Well, you know what? You can't set the agenda all the time. We work in editorial and opinion. That's the job that we were hired to do. And to silence all of these voices is ridiculous because that's exactly what that project was meant to do.
So journalists and news outlets these days are scared to report and write about topics or issues, even if they're true. Do you see what happened with you at the Union-Tribune as part of this?
Yes, I do. And it is ridiculous because that we are supposed to be the eyes and the ears of the community. See something, say something. But they are trying to set the agenda. They are trying to control the narrative. And that's not journalism. There's two sides to every story, not one. And the rich people who own these papers and television stations across the country should not be setting the agenda.
Why did you decide to speak out today?
Because it's not right. I have been retaliated against because I brought 2 claims to the Human Resources Department. Women at the San Diego Union-Tribune are not treated fairly. I'm a brown woman over the age of 40, and these guys who own this paper and the 3 male supervisors that I have reported to don't like it. And they want to silence me, and I will not stay silent. And I hope that other journalists will speak up as well.
What's next for you?
You know, I've had a migraine for 2 days. I don't remember when was the last time I ate, and I feel sick to my stomach over this whole thing. But I am going to take a deep breath and try to figure out what my next step is. I know that I will only get involved in a situation that allows me to tell the truth, because the truth matters. And I will always be a storyteller. I will always mentor journalists. I'm also the president of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, San Diego Tijuana chapter. So I hope to set a good example about journalism and where we are from here.
KPBS reached out to the San Diego Union-Tribune for comment on Castaneda's departure from the paper. A representative from the owner of the UT Media News Group, executive editor Frank Pine, issued the following statement. The decision to eliminate Castaneda's position had nothing to do with any editorial, and in fact, she did not write the draft editorial that falsely claims led to her dismissal. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thank you for joining us.